My name is John. I work with Prashad Physical Therapy, which is your local family-owned physical therapy provider. So we've got 2 locations. But I've also been in the physical therapy business for over 30 years, and I've done a lot of recruiting, a lot of work with different organizations, and through that experience, I've seen a lot about how organizations go through the process of trying to find and acquire great talent for the organization, how to retain them when they do have them on board. So we're going to kind of talk about this today, but I'm also going to want you guys to also engage with me on this. Like, we've got a recruiter right here with us today, so she can provide some feedback. Lindsay can provide some other pieces that might be something that we can take back to our workplace. And that's the whole purpose of Idea Factory, right? The whole idea was for the Power Partners. We meet here every Monday, except for the 4th Monday of the month where we do the Idea Factory, to kind of bring us all together to share ideas that we can take back to our workplace and help us with our business growth. So today we're going to start talking about this subject. And we've gotten a request to talk about recruiting and staffing over the last few months. So we figured, let's cover this month. Let's talk about this. So we will start off talking about what is the biggest headache for employers. Obviously, as a recruiter, being in our office, in our group today, you know that the number one issue is what? Employees. Employees are the number one headache for an organization overall. Yeah, and a lot of the owners here that are here, they kind of know that. They go through this. And when do we typically address dealing with staffing? Anybody? All the time. All the time, right? Yep. Whether or not you're trying to make sure that they're showing up on time for work, whether they're doing the job that they need to be done, whether or not they're staying for a period of time that you want them to stay, and also move them into different roles and responsibilities with the organization. They can be sometimes the biggest headaches for a lot of the employers out there. So if you are looking at kind of establishing something, I don't look at the acquisition of employees first. I look at what am I doing to retain the existing employees? What am I doing inside the organization that once I get this person in the door, how are they staying here? Why are they staying here? You know, what's it compelling them to be with my organization? So through this experience of seeing so many organizations go through this, and in the recruiting process and hiring process with a lot of organizations myself, these are some key things that I kind of wanted to start with to talk about today to help kind of foster some ideas with you guys. So understanding what are some of the biggest challenges that all businesses are facing right now. You know, we're dealing with a different time. Ever since COVID came, it's affected a lot of how we operate and what we do, how we do it with our businesses. So one of the biggest things is maintain a quality of customer relationships. You know, what are we doing inside our organization when we have so much sometimes turnover to keep that influence going, so that we're maintaining the same product and service that we're delivering to our products that we weren't having to deal with as an issue prior to COVID. You know, a lot of people are still recovering from that, still dealing with those issues with the job market the way it is. It's also created a kind of a difference in opinion in the way the employees are looking at organizations nowadays, right? They're approaching it differently. When I first got into the workplace, it was normal for me to give a 2 weeks notice when I quit, at least minimally, right? Yeah. If I was in a larger professional position, I'd try to give them at least a month or so to kind of give them a chance to backfill that role. Right now, you could show up one day in your organization and they show up in the morning, and by the lunch, they're not there anymore. They're gone. Never said anything, just left. They just ghosted the organization. So what are some of the things that are contributing to that? You know, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. How are we meeting our customers' needs? I mean, restaurant industries classically had the worst time with this because they had to change everything they did about themselves. They couldn't, I can open my business, but I can only have to have a certain number of tables. I'm going to have to lay off people, and then I got to get people back because people are coming back in. I can't serve them inside the business. I got to take stuff to their home or provide them different options. These created so many challenges within our industry, and that's just one industry that it created challenges with. It is broadcast over a lot of industries that were dramatically affected in how they approach their business after this. So meeting our customer needs becomes a challenge, because if you're constantly having turnover in your organization, it's very difficult to make sure that you have the staffing and the people there to meet the needs, right? Preserving your good reputation. It's very easy. Right now, you've seen online right now, like what's going on with Anheuser-Busch. This is great. It's the reputation that's being created. Some of these reputations out there, and it can be fostered by something just also boom, it explodes and it dramatically affects the product and the service for the organizations out there. So maintaining a good positive business reputation online presence will not only help you with retaining your employees and staff, but it also is helpful in helping people who want to be part of your organization. They're going to read about these things. They're going to learn about you. So encouraging a good reputation online. And of course, retaining employees. Once you put in the time and effort, and obviously with staffing, they know you invest a ton of money and time to get somebody ramped up to speed to be able to deliver on their key performance indicators or metrics that they're responsible for and be contributors to the organization. And then they decide to leave. Now you got to backfill it. So you're going through this constant cycle where you're getting this up and down and up and down and up and down. So how do you try to level that out so that you don't have to deal with those dramatic downturns? Because it not only affects your ability to deliver the business, it affects the other employees inside, because sometimes they're the ones that have to pick up the slack, right? They're the ones that are picking up the gaps that occur when employees leave. Finding an effective brand. People, I don't think look at enough. And we had a great presentation last month. By the way, anybody on the YouTube channel, check that out. It's on our Awatuki Chamber YouTube channel. We did a discussion around branding, and a couple of our power partners presented on that. Branding in your business is also a big attraction to employees. It also makes them feel connected, okay? And branding of your business is incorporating multiple things. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then marketing in a saturated marketplace. I mean, a lot of people, I've helped start a business where there was nobody there. There was no competition. It's a golden era. Everything's good. Employees are happy. Everybody's good. Production's easy. Everything's easy. And then all of a sudden competition starts coming in. So they start kind of gobbling and nibbling up some of that. So you become more competitive. So what makes you different? What makes your business different, not only to your customers, but also to your employees, right? So those are some of the biggest challenges. So on the forms that I handed out to you guys today, you'll see that on the back side of that form we're talking about the vision, mission, and purpose. And we're like, what does this have to do with basically maintaining and retaining talent? Well, I think it's personally one of the key components of retaining talent. You've got to be clear on that. Do you have a clear vision? Do you have a clear mission for your organization? Do you have a clear purpose that people can buy into? Okay. So does anybody want to give me a definition of a vision? What's a vision statement for an organization? What does that mean to you? Come on, I'm looking for a volunteer. Come on, who's going to step up? Yes. See it, Don.
Where do you see yourself in, say, 6 months, 12 months, 1 year? Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the future?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's essentially what you're looking at, right? That's a great. I mean, that's a great statement. It's where the company's going. It's where are we going as an organization? And the people that are in part of that, if you're an owner or even a part of the leadership team, you should potentially be part of the decision making on what the vision is for that organization, because you're going to be ambassadoring that. You're going to be moving that forward, okay? So having a clear vision. So that's where we want to go. Where are you going? Okay. So who wants to take on this one? What's a mission statement?
A sentence that explains what your reason for existence is.
Yeah.
If you want to just do it as a general, not be specific on a business, I'd say mission is to basically have satisfied customers, produce a productive workplace, things of that along those lines.
Okay.
Quality, thank you.
Quality, okay.
I think what your goals and objectives are for your organization.
Okay, that could be part of it. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what you're doing, right? It's really what you're doing. What is it that you're doing in your organization? That's what you're focusing on from a mission. It's a what, who, and why. What a company does, who it serves, what's the roadmap, and to making the vision tangible. So this is kind of I'm doing this here. So like if I were to talk about like my business, my vision is to provide local physical therapy practices with services that help them grow their business. Okay. Now, if I'm talking about my mission, I'm going to say I provide expert business development services that help small to medium-sized practices grow. Okay, that's my mission. Okay, so this is the thing. This is the do. This is the do portion of what you're trying to do. So these are the things that this is kind of interesting as you sit here and talk. A lot of people here, like you may work for an organization, you may be a leader within your organization, but creating clarity on the vision and mission is one of the big foundations for actually how people can get aligned, because that's what we're doing. We're really trying to create alignment. The last part of this, so so just to reiterate, the mission is really what you're doing. What are you doing as what you're calling? You're providing healthcare benefits for employers and employees, right? So and then your organization's purpose. This one usually gets lost. A lot of people know typically a vision. People know a vision, but they don't mission and vision statements, but they don't really know what the purpose is, or even are outlined by organizations. Does anybody want to take a shot at this? How would you define purpose within an organization?
Well, with my organization, it's to help employers create a healthier workplace.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the problem that problem created.
There you go. So it's kind of the problem. It's what they're doing. Is what are they different? How are they doing that? So yeah, the purpose is a person's sense of, it's like she said, what we need, what need are we here to fill? Or a movement are we championing? So for me, I basically say, for my purpose within my organization is I connect people with expert medical personnel. So that's what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be broad or grandiose or anything like that. It can be just very simple statement. That's all I'm doing. But what's good about this is once you have clarity on these three things within your organization, you now help create a foundation for what is, I think, the most important thing to retaining people is a culture. Your company culture. So your culture within your organization is where you're going to, so what is your company culture? What is it? So people that are working for an organization, how many of you feel connected to your company's culture? Yeah. Yeah. So, and me as a sole proprietor, exactly, it's the same thing. I'm connected with it. So, but anybody else that comes into it, if I decide to bring somebody else into it, I want them aligned with these things. And if they're aligned with these things, then they're now part of my culture. So therefore, that's a significant thing in helping people understand, what direction your organization is going. Where's it going? What are we doing to get there? And why am I here? Well, why am I here? Is my why, my personal why, aligned with that? And that's where a lot of people look at. I would recommend people look at creating some kind of form of vision, mission, and purpose for their own personal life, and write that down and have that as something that you would use, because when you're out there looking for organizations you want to work with, do these two align? Do I have the two that they meet up and I know I can be part of this? Because that's going to be a key element to making sure that people are going to be part of that organization and want to stay on board, because they're going for something greater. And that's why I say the purpose is typically a little bit more of the altruistic side of things. It's like, I'm here to do this because I really want to help people do something, or something outside of yourself. So, when I worked briefly in retail, we used to have a statement. It's called ABC players. Have you ever heard that terminology? Yeah, I don't like it. I never did, because it felt like it put me in a box. Like I'm an A player, that's how I exist. I'm a B player, that's where I'm at. Or a C player, that's who I am. So, and usually it was used by management and leadership to kind of identify people within an organization and based upon what they brought to the organization at the time. What I look at is that these people are more about the culture. Do they exist in the culture? They're cultural existers. So when we think about that from a standpoint, cultural existers are people that are typically new hires. They can be new hires. They don't know anything. They haven't been part of the culture. They can maybe, hopefully during the interview process, do all the recruiting process, they become somewhat aware of what the culture is, but they haven't really been integrated into it. So they're still learning that. It could be new hires, interns, part-time employees, seasonal employees. They typically kind of fit into this area at the moment. And that's why I like to say moment, because it is a moment. Typically, the one thing too is that sometimes they're people that are longstanding employees that don't necessarily, they've got more personal goals and more personal aspirations than necessarily the organization. So they see it as, well, you're filling my personal vision, mission, and purpose to a degree, but I'm not necessarily going to get involved in it because I'm very clear on what I want to do within my personal, and that's all I care about. And you'll see a lot of those employees. There's a lot of them out there nowadays in this thing. They have, and sometimes some part of it, they're not actually even very clear with the vision of their own personal vision, their own personal mission, their own personal purpose. And so therefore they're very likely just to be the ones that rotate in and out very quickly. They also usually, a lot of them typically have little or no experience in that role. Because typically people that are in these categories that move in and move out, they usually become disenchanted with the role or responsibilities or whatever that is. So they're going to look for something different because it doesn't quite fit them or fill them with what they want. And so therefore they're going to be jumping around to different roles of responsibility. So when you're looking at resumes, that's a good way to look at it. What's a person that's jumping from this job position to this job position to this job position to this job position in short periods of time? You could probably tell right off the bat that they're possibly just people that exist within your culture. Okay. They don't seek, the kind of nice part, they don't really seek high reward or compensation. They're like, okay, I do it. You pay me. You told me you pay me this. I'll get my paycheck. That's good. Okay, I show up at the time and I'm gone. You know, and that's all they're doing. They're not asking for any high rewards for what they're doing, and they have very little desire to move upwardly mobile within your organization. The challenge is for management and leadership, it requires a lot more of your engagement, meaning that you have to be very clear with your direction. You have to be on top of it. You need to know what their key performance indicators are. What are you expecting them to do? And how are you expecting them to do it? And then you have to monitor that, because once you take your foot off that pedal, they usually will drop back down and then you have to go back to it. So your hope is that people will move from cultural existence either quickly up your organization into the next portion, which is, I think, living, to either or outside of your organization. There are a few people that I feel can exist within your organization as long as they're not toxic to your culture. And that's a high potential in this category. They're kind of on that precipice of potentially becoming toxic. It means that their personal so misaligned with your own their professional or your organization's culture that they're going to interact and it's going to cause some issues with your organization. So be aware of that. So cultural livers. You know, I look at people that are cultural livers as majority people within an organization. Majority of people that you have in your organization hopefully live, especially the ones that have been with you longer than 6 months to a year. By that time, they've been integrated into your culture. They know what the expectations are. They probably know the overall vision, the mission. They can speak on those things and they understand it. And they actively participate in the culture. They're the ones that when you do say, hey, we're going to do a team building activity, they're all on board. When you provide them with an ability to learn a new skill, they're on board. They want to. They're going to take that step. Now, they won't initiate it, but once you have the offering, they'll go for it. That's just who they are. You know, they're very competent in the roles. They usually hit their targets. They're consistent. They're long-standing. You feel that they need very little management. You don't need to engage with them that much. And you just kind of let them do what they do and support them the way you can as leaders and owners. Cultural ambassadors. This is one of the big levels, and this is also a personality-driven individual. And I'll preface this in a second. These people know, speak, live, and foster organization culture. They are fully aligned. They're personal. They're highly developed in their personal life. They're highly developed in their professional life, and they are matched. They grow together, and they don't see a difference between that. You know, they don't. They're high achievers a lot of times within an organization because they're highly motivated and they see things that way. They typically will exceed the expectations of their roles. They usually hit mark, and they basically set new bars within your organization. They're typically leaders are very excited about that. They're very aligned with the foster with fellow coworkers. They're the ones that when you get there, if they're training somebody new that's in non-existence, stick them with an ambassador. If you can, if you've got an ambassador in your organization, they're going to help foster that person quickly out of it or you're going to see the disconnect really quickly between the person that's in that organization that doesn't care for this person. And you're like, well, they're the model and you're not, and you don't like this. Well, let's help you find something that's better for you. Okay. If not, you're going to encourage that person to go from that into at least living or eventually into ambassador mode. They are seen as leaders in an organization, whether or not it's defined. You could be a simple, like you could be a waiter or waitress within an organization. Angie, I would say, is a cultural ambassador for Native here. She does a great job. She represents the organization. She steps up. She does whatever she needs. She doesn't have to be asked. She's going to do, these are people that influence and build your business. She naturally attracts people. I'm guaranteeing new hires, new employees will gravitate to her for information without even asking. They may have a manager here, but they'll gravitate more towards them. So they could be in leadership positions. Ideally, you want them in leadership positions because it's very clear. And then, but they're also can be within your staff. So recognizing them and knowing how to empower them and enable them within your organization for growth is very important, because they will stay in that role for as long as they don't feel disconnected from the vision, the mission, and the values of the organization. That's why in the purpose. If you have an organization's leadership that doesn't go by the vision, the mission, and the purpose of the organization, you will the disenchantment of those employees will be very quick, and they will move on. They will be gone. They'll recognize it right off the bat. You're not genuine. You say one thing, you do another thing. They don't want to be part of an organization like that. So that's why people within this can exist within any three of these levels at any one time. So as leaders and managers in the organization, take a pulse, see where your employee fits. How are they kind of fitting for the moment in this? And then foster what they need. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We won't go into a big definition. That's a bigger, broader subject. But just for statement fact, you want to be able to recognize these people within your organization and then be able to help them in the way you can to foster that. Any questions on anything we've talked about so far? A little bit? No? All right. So these are some of the things that I looked up and also with my experience said these are the things that help retain some of the top talent. Be clear with your expectations. What does that mean? Does anybody want to answer that for me? Be clear with your expectations. What's a great document that you can create within your organization that helps create clear employee manual, handbook, job descriptions, right? These things are all things that help facilitate what's clear, what the expectations for that role is. If you're basically bringing somebody and there's nothing that they have that they can basically go back to and say, okay, here it is. Even leadership, because you want all your leaders to speak the same language that they can go back to, then that's one of the things. So be very clear with your expectations. I can tell you this, top talent will recognize when you are not clear, and you'll be lucky to have them for a while. Or what you'll do is you'll find they'll want to be part of the change. They'll want to make sure it's clear. I want to define my role. They'll take it over and they'll try to, I want to be very clear. Do you agree with this? Yes, okay. So it's fine if you want to have, if you have a new role that you're not very clear within your organization about what you want to do, to partner with somebody you think is got the talent and skills to be able to bring that to you to help them with that process. They'd like to be involved in that. That's where it's the next part. Make them feel part of the vision. If they align with the vision of your organization, they want to also be part of how we're going to get there. What am I going to do? What's my role in this? I want to see that. You want to do this? Okay, great. I love that. That's part of what it aligns with me. I want to do that. So how am I part of it? Include them in that. Position them in proper roles that suit their skills and talents. How many of you have seen people get aligned in different roles and responsibilities that have very little to do with their talents, skills? So you could have the most talented player on your team, but you misposition them. Put me in as an accountant, your business will fail. I'm the guy that's going to go out in the field and market. I'm not going to be sitting behind the desk crunching numbers and do this. Again, put the accountant in my role, they may be very uncomfortable with it. Not to say that people aren't, but understanding the skill sets, the talents, and what they naturally bring to your organization is so important to making sure they're positioned correctly for success. Okay? Because you can have this person's great, wonder why they leave. Well, they're uncomfortable. They don't like what they do. They don't enjoy that part of the business. And usually what's a trigger? What would be a trigger that you would say that'll identify an employee that is that is like at the point that feels like they're misrolled right now? What would you say?
Hire somebody who's quiet, tempered, kind of a thing, you try to put them in sales.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody who chit chats a lot, and you put them in somewhere where they just need to sit at a desk and not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Not gonna work.
But a quick indicator for the feedback is really the people they'll come up to you and say, hey, I'd really like to do this. I'd really like to do this. You know, and you're like, okay, so what are you doing as a leader? If they're kind of coming to you and asking about this, they understand the roles and responsibilities within it, but they're asking to go outside of that, then you need to kind of figure out whether or not this role is a good fit for them, or if there's a position that might better suit them within your organization. So kind of look at that. So take that feedback from your employees as you're going through that. Provide them tools to achieve their targets. I say don't ever create a job description for an organization or a position that you don't have anything in place to be able to give them to be successful in their role. Top talent will not tolerate that. They will be gone in a minute if they don't feel that they have the support they need, the tools they need to be able to do their job. It's too frustrating. They'll leave. So making sure you're doing that. So as a leader, when you're creating your job descriptions and your handbooks, you're basically making sure that people know these are the tools that you have available to you and the training that's necessary. Okay? Be aware of signs of burnout. Top talent are typically overachievers. They don't know when to stop. They will keep going and going and going. And so life balance starts to go one way versus the other. They don't know how to say no. They don't know how to say no. I'm going to step up. I'm going to do this. I could take on everything. I could do this. And that's where sometimes leadership, they'll recognize it. When they have a need, I'm going to go to the best person I have on my team, and I'm going to keep, oh, can you take care of this? Can you take care of this? Can you take care of this? You've got to give them a definite time frame. A lot of times they'll volunteer to be part of that. They'll be happy to be part of that. But you've got to give them a definite, and you've got to make sure that you're acknowledging that they are doing more than they should have to within their roles and responsibilities, so that you're providing them with an aspect to that. So making sure, so be aware of the signs of burnout. You know, back them off. You know, if you're able to decide that, you can say, hey, great job there. I want you to take a couple of days off this weekend, go relax, go have fun, do whatever you need to do. When they hit their targets, hey, we got to basically, you've hit some of these targets. I got to get everything else ramped up to meet that right now. You keep it going. We're fine. Keep it going right here, and then we'll hit the new targets. I'll do my job on this side to push things forward, okay? Provide them flexibility. They're typically top talent is going to be living or ambassadors within your organization. They don't need micromanagement. They won't need you to be over their shoulder every day telling them what to do, how to do it, and getting into that mix the whole time. Give them the flexibility. If they also want to get the work and life balance going in effect. Hey, I got kids and I want to watch their games and sports and like this. Make sure you're open to those conversations and helping accommodate those things while they're still able to hit their goals, right? You create a measure to help them support to meet their goals by letting them have the life balance. Because if you don't create the flexibility, they're going to look for it elsewhere because they're getting pressure from two sides, or multiple sides, I should say. Make sure they have good leadership. This goes without being said. Your leaders need to be at least living, if not ambassadors for your organization. They should not be threatened by people coming in that are top talent. And often you'll see in the workplace, they get threatened by it. And I'm concerned about this person. And they're a high achiever, but they're going to make me look bad. So, you know, and that's what happens. That's a way to recognize a toxic leader right off the bat. Okay. Now you can also recognize that when a leader is a good leader, understanding keeping people within their lanes and zones, because top talent also will want to, hey, I'll do all this and this. No, let's can I keep you in this area, because you do not want your top talent to say, I'm going to take over everything. You want them to focus on the goals and create achievable goals, things that they can go for within their lanes, so that they do that. But providing good leadership that recognizes these things that we've just talked about up here is going to be very important to the success in retaining that employee. The next thing is making sure you have or you pay competitively. It's real simple right now. You can look it up online. You can find out what's going on. Like you said, pay competitively, offer good benefits for whatever role that is. That could include insurance, health benefits. That could include legal and identity shield benefits. That could include gym memberships. That could include childcare. That could include a lot of different things. It all depends on your organization and what you're capable of doing and willing to do while still being profitable as an organization. But making sure you're competitive and you're allowing for growth, not only financially or benefits related within the organization, is key to that. You'll attract a lot more people. 401k programs, retirement, all that stuff. That helps solidify and makes them feel very secure within your organization. So having those things. Does anybody else have any things I haven't talked about on how to retain some top talent? Yes, ma'am.
So, I kind of hear what you're saying, but I guess I'm just kind of thinking of a conversation that I had with a group of young people Thanksgiving time.
Mhm.
And predominantly they were IT people, they had their degrees, and younger generation.
Mhm.
And the balance in what you're talking about here and their own perception of self-worth. And so like when you're talking not just about paying competitively, but when you're looking at the new gene pool, I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but the new culture of the young people that don't want to come into the office, that don't want to be accountable necessarily, that think they should be given a responsibility without having earned it, and the entitlement, kind of like, hey, we've got our degree, blah, blah, blah. Well, what do you have in the way of experience? Zip, okay? You got to get that experience to get that, to build that trust. But how do you create, or how do you work? I mean, if that's what your gene pool is of what's available,
you can be. Again, that comes down to leadership.
How do you get past that? Because it seems like they're popping out of college now with that attitude.
Right. So again, they fit in the categories, right? Where do they fit within your organization? So they're going to be cultural existers. Well, whether or not, again, you don't go up. I don't go up to somebody and say, Mary Lee, you're a cultural exister within our organization. I don't. It's just for me. I'm looking. Yeah. But my point is that this is more, when I say this is more from your leadership perspective and where you're making decisions and how you're addressing things. You're using triggers to kind of help.
Maybe I didn't state my question well enough, but it's more like, so I recognize all of that, but then I'm seeing the existers thinking they should be treated like a liver.
Well,
and how do you deal with that? How do you kind of
again, if they see that and they're somebody that lives within your culture, again, it all comes back to your culture. If they fit within that and they see themselves differently within it and they're aligned with your culture, yeah, they probably are. They're livers. They're livers in your culture, if not potentially ambassadors. But if they're outside of your culture or they don't know your culture, then get them up to speed on your culture. Figure it out. Get them aligned with people that are ambassadors within your organization that really understand the culture. That person's either going, like I said, somebody as a cultural ambassador is either going to discourage the heck out of that person and they're going to want to go away as fast as possible, or they're going to be highly motivated. Wow, I really align with this. I want to be this. You do not want to, with that population, you don't want to discourage them from wanting to be more. You want them to be encouraged by that, but you want to help them in the route to get there. You could see yourself as one way, an organization can see it as a little different. Well, what can I do to help that person get to where their vision and where they see themselves and I see them are aligned, right? So it's all about that alignment, right? And Mary Lee, you had a question?
What I found is through the years, I was brought up that if you were going to get a job or you're going to do something, it was drilled into me from my parents. You show up on time, you be there, you do what they say, it's your job, and that. Where nowadays parents could care less. They don't really, instill these values in some of the kids.
Because they get participation trophies.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
or the parents do, but then they go to college and college says, oh no,
We've definitely got a lot more cultural challenges than some of the things that, I mean, like I said, I grew up when I searched for jobs in a newspaper ad. I didn't go online. I didn't, that was how I found a job. It was like, and also you didn't go through a battery of behavioral, cultural interviews. You didn't go through all these things, which we're going to talk a little bit about here as we do in the recruit. You're not kind of doing it. You have to be a little bit more disciplined in how you do your interview processes to identify people that won't fit your culture. But the first thing you have to do is identify and create a clear culture within your organization. If you don't do that, there's no point. You won't know. You're just kind of searching and hunting. There's nothing standard there. There's nothing there that everybody can rally around. Okay, so you've got to do that. So this is why there's a lot of discussions, I'm sure, in the recruiting workspace, the discussions around culture. What's your culture within your organization? It's really about that. I mean, if I were Lindsay, working with different businesses, I want to understand what's your culture. Am I even going to get candidates that come into your organization that are going to stay because you guys don't really have any good foundation here? These are some of the issues that we deal with. So any other comments about this? I mean, great stuff. I mean, granted, these are the challenges that we're facing, right? Yeah.
Maybe one analogy is some of these kids that maybe have a higher opinion of themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of my family's in the military, and so for example, you get a new officer who's just fresh out of college, just got out of the bars, thinks he's hot stuff. A lot of the people believe they won't make a good officer until a good sergeant stands them up against the wall and explains the world to them. Mm-hmm. So maybe in your livers or your ambassadors, you need some people in a good way, an effective way, take some of these new kids that are coming out of school and think that they're an ambassador when they're still just an exister. This is the real world. This is what you need to understand to be in this culture and thrive in this culture.
So I love that you use the military terminology there in the background, because what's one thing that the military does with every soldier?
Discipline.
Drill, practice, drill. It becomes repetitive. It becomes part of this. If you aren't talking about your vision, mission, and purpose in your organization on a highly regular basis, it will not. Just because it's there on your website or on a wall in your office or shared on your social media. Again, a top talent person is going to know, are we living it? Are we part of it? Are we really ambassadoring this? Are we really fostering this? Great organizations I've worked with will always sit there in their meetings and talk about these three things without fail. And then what it does is sets the tone for everybody to be thinking in the same way when we're talking about what we're doing and how we're doing it, why we're doing this, and where we're going. So that's exactly that's what's done. It's done a little differently in the military than in the civilian space, but the outcome and the goal is the same. It's the same. So a very good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. Anybody else? She's like, yeah, that's kind of what I got. All right. So now we're going to talk about how to recruit top talent. Now, I want to say this is kind of an interesting thing. I decided to play around with ChatGPT on this one. Yeah. And this is what it came up with. This is exactly what it came up with. Now, what's funny is that I didn't do this. This is the last part I did for the whole presentation. I wanted to look at ChatGPT is an AI program that you can basically ask. It's basically, and it'll give you like say, how do I recruit? So I put in the question, how to recruit top talent? Boom, there it is. Like there it is. But the funny thing is, I did everything else before I even asked that. So, and what you'll see is here is everything about this isn't novel. Nothing that we've talked about today is really novel. Most of you have probably heard this over time. The whole thing with the Idea Factory, maybe there might be one thing that you've gathered that's new, that's different, that you haven't heard before. But the biggest thing is that we need to constantly, again, drill. If I want to be good at something, I could have heard this 16 times over the last 10 years, but never done anything about it. Maybe this year, maybe this time, I'll do something about it. So when we talk about acquiring and recruiting top talent, making sure you have define the role. What is that? What defines the role within the organization? Anybody? Job description, right? Job descriptions define the roles, position descriptions, whatever you have. So one of the things I'd recommend is make sure you have job descriptions for every role you have within your organization. Clear. Understand what skills, what experience are necessary, you know, what's required of the role. Put it down there. Make sure that so everybody in the organization is consistent with that. Create an attractive employer brand. We talked about that before. Brand. Your brand. What's your brand? What are you doing? You know, what are you doing to attract people? If your brand is tying in, your brand should always be tying in your vision, your mission, and your purpose. So if you have an opportunity within whatever branding campaign you're doing to communicate that to the public, do it. Because that's the compelling thing. That's going to attract the customer. That's an agreement and alignment with your product. The reason why I like coming here to Native is not because of the food. I like Angie. Angie's great. I mean, the food's great too. I'm just saying, but the main thing is the people makes a big difference. Makes a big difference, right? So, but so she helps attract. She creates the brand. She fosters the brand. So also look at making sure you're sharing that on all kinds of channels. If you have a website up and you don't have an About Us page with some form of listing of your vision or mission, do it. Go make a page on that. In fact, put a purpose if you're there, if you want to put a purpose down there. Purpose is more internal, but I mean, it's great. I mean, a lot of people will appreciate, wow, that's your purpose. Wow, that's your why. That's really cool, you know. Kind of doing that. That'll help get people in. Because remember, your customers of today could be your employees of tomorrow. What a great way to recruit them. They know your business. Yes, Don.
With AI coming up as fast as it is today, I mean, how are we actually going to compete with that? Because it's like you say, you put it in, the computer will do everything for you.
Great question, Don. I don't have the answer for that during this. I don't. It's a great question. It's something that that we maybe can explore more in a focus because it's probably a whole topic on its own coming up as we kind of deal with that as we look at how that's being integrated. So, but yeah, let's put that down on your sheet for one of the future ones there for our next idea factories. You know, multiple channels. When you're trying to recruit, go out there and use multiple channels. There's a lot of great resources you can use. You know, Fry's. I don't know if have you ever driven by Fry's? Okay. Have you noticed that they have like a huge banner out there saying now hiring? So they know that their turnover rate, because they have a lot of people in the organization that are cultural existers. I mean, it's natural that a lot of them is first job, they're doing school, they're doing this, they're going to turn over a lot. So they always want to be recruiting and always want to have that person to fill in that position before. So that's one great way to do it. Especially if you have a building that you can advertise that you're recruiting. So a lot of people don't have that. Rick, you had something?
You mentioned Fry's. The other thing is, if you go inside, you hear it over the PA system. They're constantly preaching their gospel.
Right. Yep.
And that's basically what you have said is you want to be constantly preaching your gospel, preach the message, so that the people that you do attract are going to be attracted to that message. They're going to want to be part of that culture.
Correct. So that's Fry's branding aspect of it. And that's created a unique advantage because the other stores haven't really done that yet. They haven't. I don't drive by a Bash's or a Safeway right now where they have that up there. Now, eventually they might if Fry's and Safeway merge, which has been talked about. Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that you have a lot of platforms, social media. Your website should have a career page of some sort there. Yeah, you want to basically let people, as they find you and engage with you, to be able to kind of submit it. And I would recommend that you're always recruiting. There's never a time not recruiting, right? It doesn't mean you necessarily have a good job position at the time, but you're always recruiting. Also using recruiting services out there. There's some talent that may be very difficult. They don't spend that time in that kind of channel, but the recruiting channel has more of an aspect to get you the candidates as quickly because they've already got them. They've already started vetting the process and doing all that. They've gone through some of the processes that we'll talk about here with the behavioral assessments, technical assessments, cultural fit interviews. So if they know your culture, a recruiter knows your culture and understands what you're looking for, they can get you the preliminary so you're not spending hours and hours and hours recruiting. So that's another aspect. Yes?
The other thing, the number one thing we hear from candidates is that they can't get a hold of anybody. They're applying for jobs and nobody's listening.
Yeah.
So on the other side of it, we have all the employers out there saying, where are all the people who want to work? And they're literally screaming for work. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Because there's so many well, you already have all the contacts for the people that are gonna listen to us when we say we want a job.
Right. Yep.
So they're all coming to us then.
Yeah. So you're seeing that nowadays, because really in the business, a lot of times when we were fine, when we didn't have a lot of staffing issues, it was like, oh, we're reacting. Oh my gosh, we lost somebody. I got to get somebody in. So then you just kind of throw something together. Then you find somebody. Well, then you don't even know if they fit your culture, if they got the skills or experience. You haven't practiced. You're not practicing that. You're not again that whole drilling aspect of it. I recommend most organizations do some form of an interview process on a weekly basis, whether or not you're hiring to fill that role or not. It could be a simple, quick one. Don't waste people's time. They don't want to waste time, but you say, hey, I might have some roles down the line here, and you're a really interesting person I think would be a great asset to our team. Can I keep your resume on file and contact you when I have an opportunity available? File that away. And then basically when the opportunity arises, you pull it right back out and you reach out to those people because you've left them with a good impression, which kind of gets down to some of the things we're talking about down here. But we'll first kind of hit the competitive compensation package. Again, a lot of our power partners in our group and a lot of people within our chamber have the benefits and have these packages that can actually augment your compensation packages to your organization. Talk with them, reach out to them, investigate how you can do this, because when people feel very secure in their workplace because they feel they're financially secure, they got their health benefits taken care of, they've got retirement benefits going, this is really something that they're going to be more comfortable with staying with you, even in difficult times and challenging times. Somebody may offer more money, and that's to me a big red sign when somebody's offering you exorbitant amount of money over competitive package because they're struggling just to even keep people in the place because the culture is so bad and they have so much turnover. So find a culture first. Look for the packages that meet your needs and understand that about yourself and the employees that you're trying to recruit. Conduct thorough interviews. This is kind of what, develop rigorous interview process that includes multiple types of rounds. Now, I don't mean that. If I'm hiring for a wait staff here at this location, I want to know, have they had some service experience? Have they done some of these things? I'm not going to go through 3 or 4 rounds of interviews. But for key roles and responsibilities within the organization, it's not a bad idea, because the more people they get to meet within your organization, the more you know how they'll fit into your culture and the feedback you get, because you don't want somebody coming in that's totally antagonist to somebody that you find is a cultural ambassador within your organization. You'll discourage the ambassador and you'll discourage the other person. You might lose both. So you don't want to do that. Yes?
We actually do the personality test. It's
Okay.
one of the first things that we do. Because if we're hiring for, say, designers and stuff, just as a general thing, they can be introverted, temperamental, that kind of thing. They like their own space, they have their own thoughts, etc., kind of thing, versus a sales position. It just kind of tells about your personality. It tells like if you're outgoing or if you're not, and what. So depending on the role we're hiring for, if you're outgoing and stuff, well, then that's going to fit. If you're hiring for some another position where you're just going to be sitting in a machine all day and you're not going, that's not going to probably fit.
Right.
So we actually look at that as an overall one of the components into hiring.
Absolutely. It's great. It's great. So, and I know, talking with Renee over the years, we've been part of Power Partners, how invested she is into the culture of that organization, because she feels they're investing into her. So that's so knowing these things and understanding these things, that's a key component. So maybe talk to Renee about some of what the culture is there and how you might be able to integrate it into your workplace, because that's really cool. So we obviously go in and provide positive candidate experience. I don't care if I'm sitting there recruiting. Again, the follow-up, if I apply for a job and I'm a top talent person, I expect to hear pretty soon if they're going to interview me or not. Once they interview me, I expect to know exactly what the next step is and when I should expect that. And you need to make sure you deliver on that. If you say, hey, I'm interviewing a few more candidates today, I'll be calling you tonight. Call them tonight. They're waiting. They'll have their phone. They'll be waiting if they're a good candidate. They're like, I'm interested. Let's see. And if you miss it and you call them the next morning, trust me, that's already planted in their head that you're not delivering. So they may not trust you in the future. So they're going to come in at a lower level than you expected them to be. So follow through, do the right thing, communicate with them. Whether whether or not you're hiring them or not, if they're a great candidate, let them know, hey, at this time, you're really great. We just don't have a role at the moment. I really want to keep your application on file. Can I follow up with you in the future if I have that available? Thank you very much for taking the time to come in and meet with us today. I look forward to potentially working with you in the future. That's probably one of the most encouraging things I could walk out of an interview with without getting the job, you know? So those are some of those things, okay? Make sure you're offering opportunities for growth. Top talent always looks for opportunities for growth. They want to see, okay, if I'm starting in at this position, where's my growth channel? So do you have a good organization line with the organization? What am I growing? It could be through leadership. It could be more for financial. So either way, some are end, these are end positions that you have, but what kind of financial growth can you get them to at that point? Okay. If you can, with your organization board, figure out how they might be able to grow within your organization. You may have not even created roles and positions because you're a new business and you're kind of branching out, but you need to see if kind of have a vision, an idea with this top talent, where you might see them being if things work out and you start to achieve your growth goals with your vision in your organization, because that'll help foster your organization board. Okay, perfect. So this is all AI that just did this for me. This is phenomenal. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're talking about the candidate experience,
Yes.
and maybe this goes back to my age, but we used to say when you're interviewing someone, let's see if they follow up, let's see if they thank you, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I always expected them to make the next first move. And that was kind of one of my tests, that if they didn't even follow up with me, how can I, especially for salespeople, how can I count on them following up with my clients?
Top talent doesn't normally, but I'm going to say this, top talent is interviewing you. They're interviewing you during the process. So they're figuring out whether or not you fit them. Now, I could say that about somebody that's very new into the workplace, that's learning what's the right social norms and should be done when they come into an organization, and you kind of doing that as a way to kind of funnel out, because they don't really have a vision, mission, or purpose yet. They just haven't developed it yet. They haven't gone through enough life experience to kind of mold that. So that I could see that being done, but with higher levels, they're interviewing you. So if you're not, they want to know, are you going to deliver? But great point, great comment. I mean, that at least let's talk about where that could be really applied. I think it's really good applied at some of the initial positions within an organization.
And then I guess the other thing that I hear from people when I'm talking from the benefit standpoint, talking to different people who've come in and landed where, or sometimes because I'm the benefits person, they'll call me and say, "Don't tell my boss I'm calling you," but I'm thinking of leaving. What's going to happen to this, this, and this, and this, the benefits package. So one thing that I don't see up there is some kind of golden handcuff for the employees, so that if you're putting together a benefit package, put together something that requires a certain percentage or time of loyalty before they get to just take it up.
Yeah, in some ways that might be something, especially in key roles that are very difficult to replace. That's why, like, some of these major executives in organizations have a big bonus structure that if you leave early, you lose that, because they know this position is hard to fill. But within some organizations, I'd say it's applicable to certain people. It's hard because that's the hammer. Do you come in and affiliate with the organization because they have a hammer, or do you come in because they're a facilitator of your growth? Versus
sometimes you see both, because it's like I'll hear from recruits, one of the reasons they chose XYZ company over ABC company is XYZ had health plan, and they've got a spouse that's got a health problem.
Absolutely, and that's the whole alignment with the with what compensation package you have. That's your compensation package. That's the important development that you have there. Because if you're not competitive, I set up a role and position and you only offer a pay, but their competitors offering 401ks, health insurance plans, childcare, and that's my need, I'm going to gravitate towards them. And it might even be a lower pay scale. They may offer those packages but at a lower pay scale, but because so obviously I didn't go into deep depth onto those areas, because I will typically with clients I work with, and business I really truly understand. I can go into that more of the detail of how to kind of facilitate what I'm facilitating. So I didn't talk about that because I'm not in your industry. I don't know how to necessarily, but I can say this consistently. How do I facilitate someone from existence to living to ambassadorship? Do I have a plan in place to try to get that person in? And the pressure that puts on them throughout the process is going to decide whether or not they stay with your organization or move on. They can deselect from your organization pretty quickly if they're not a good fit. You know, if they're not pressured, they'll be happy to be in the role and collect a check and show up and do the thing, even if they're not hitting their goals, that goals the organization has. So be clear on that. That's one thing I would probably recommend. So I have one too. So I wanted to share because with Mark, I did the military. Basically one. A lot of people get afraid. Well, that's really hardcore drilled and all that's very structured, rigid. But if you want to talk about an organization that's designed to get people all aligned in one direction, it's the military. So there are some learning and foundations there that you can get from that. So not a bad idea, especially if you've got veterans out there that are looking for jobs. They've already been in those types of structures. And they will be also, if you don't have that structure in your organization, the first to recognize the lack of structure within your organization. But they can be huge ambassadors in your organization if you have that structure in place. So just saying that. So that's something that I appreciate you bringing to attention. So that's what I got from this today. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much, guys, for showing up. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to you.
Any other questions, or are we done? Or do you want us to do this done?
Hand them to me. So my why is the purpose within my organization. What I'm doing, what I did today here is part of my why. It's who I am. I like to be able to get to take my experience and knowledge and be able to share that in an effort, non-judgmental, not being offended if people don't appreciate it. I shared it. You can take it and use it if you want to. If not, it's fine. And I also love to be putting myself in a position where I can get information, because once I open communication lines with people, they share. And when they share, I can learn. And when I listen, like Joe was saying, listen. When you talk too much, like what I did today, you don't get the opportunity to listen. So that's kind of my why. And when I put about my purpose is to connect people to medical services, medical providers in the community. It's because I really feel I want to help people. I want to help them get better. And I have an expertise and skill that I know I can do that. And I've done that with a lot of people. So that's my why.
Okay, thank you.
Is that short enough? It might have been long. I can be very verbose.
Give us an example.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great, wonderful. Thank you, guys. No, not bad at all. So I'll obviously just drop off those forms up at the front. Please, if you're interested, we do meet here on Mondays from 11:30 to 12:30. It'd be great for you guys to come join us occasionally if you can on a regular basis. That'd be great. If not, we'd love to see you here still for the Idea Factory. So please show up. And if you're interested, maybe you have a topic that you could present on, we'd love to hear from you, because we'd love to hear from the community about what we can do to help improve. So even with you, this could spark some things that we could basically share with the rest of the community that is beyond what I've just talked about today. So thank you, guys.